Dear Mr. or Mrs. Listener, we accept the fact that you're going to sacrifice a whole hour to listen to this podcast, but we think you are crazy. In the simplest terms, you see us as you want to see us. A Ninja Turtle, a Jedi, a redhead, a Mike. Sincerely yours, Redhead Family Therapy Guy, and a Mike.
Don't you forget about the bugger. So walk on by. You better listen to this thing. It's gonna be great. All right. We're back with another Redhead Family Therapy Guy
And a Mike.
podcast. I'm John.
I'm Michael.
And we're so grateful to have you listening today. And I'm excited because we are back at the Star Wars. It's about time.
Yes.
Michael's been like, we should do another Star Wars. How about if we do another Star Wars?
We always should do another Star Wars.
We should do another Star Wars.
There's so much you can do.
There is. There's a lot. And we picked a good one. Did we decide to go with this episode or this movie because of like the order thing? Or did we just decide to do it? I don't remember.
I think I just started listing Star Wars movies.
Isn't there like a way to watch
something
it?
That we like clicked.
Isn't there a way to watch the order where you start with this one?
Orders? No, there isn't. Not that I know of. I mean, I haven't done a lot of research into orders in a while, but there is machete order, which you go 4, 5, and then technically you go 2 through 6. But I always go 1, 2, 3.
If
6.
you did machete order, then this would be a great prequel to the machete order.
Yes, it would. It could be. Except
could you imagine how cool would it be? Hold on. How cool would it be if you could go back to 1977 and show Rogue One first? People would lose their freaking mind. Could you imagine seeing this kind of like CGI technology in 1977? People would be like,
yes. Then Star Wars would come out, I guess, that same year. Maybe it came out January 1977, and this came out, or then Star Wars came out May. And people would be like, dude, what happened to the technology?
Why did you guys regress? What happened?
I will say this. Watching Rogue One after you've seen Star Wars or Episode 4 is, I feel like more fun, more meaningful, because you understand
where it fits into the whole picture.
Yeah. And maybe even, I think after watching probably the prequel and the main trilogy, because it feel like, especially with the end scene with Darth Vader and Leia, and then with the whole, like, you definitely like seeing Episode 4 and the opening scroll, really kind of like, whoa, okay, so it gives it a little bit more oomph. But you definitely could. It is chronologically right before, like literally.
No, that's a great point, because one of the things that's so fun about Rogue One is that it pulls nostalgia, right? Because you're like getting into
really good at nostalgia.
the pissing contest between the emperor's generals or whatever, and then Leia at the end, and Darth Vader, dude. I hate to almost start with this, but. And we're talking about Rogue One, by the way, but
if we didn't mention it,
it's on the titles, but like Darth Vader in that scene, and they're running, and he's just massacring everyone. It's so awesome. It's so ferocious and wonderful.
It does give it a lot of meaning, like having the context prior, especially with General Tarkin or Admiral Tarkin. He's probably Admiral at that point, or maybe he's Grand Admiral. Maybe that's what makes him Grand Admiral. I can't remember, but just having Tarkin in it, I think that gives it more meaning. And then also when they're on Jeddah, and you have them running through the city, and they come across, I can't remember, I don't know if we know the guy's name, but the guy from Mos Eisley's cantina with his alien friend that want to like kill Luke or whatever. You know who I'm talking about? And the guy like brags on in Episode 4, he brags about having killed like different people on different systems or whatever, and then Obi-Wan comes over and cuts the dude's arm off to kind of protect Luke. Those two are in in the like city scene on Jeddah in Rogue One. So like
now.
little Easter eggs like that are
really
fun too. But yeah, chronologically you could watch Rogue One right before. But I feel like for me, I really like the machete order, except for adding one in. So I like to go 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. And then, I really like the animated series also. And I've not really thought of an order in which to watch those. Rebels is my favorite so far, although Bad Batch was really good. And Bad Batch comes right after Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And Clone Wars is great too, but I think Rebels is my favorite of the animated series.
I watched one episode of Bad Batch and didn't get pulled in. I watched one episode of Boba Fett, and I mean, fair enough. I need to give it another. I need to go back and get into number 2 because number 1's a draggy first episode. I mean, I get it. I get what they're doing, but
yeah, with Boba Fett, I'm really interested to see where season 2 goes, like what they're doing with it. But I feel like season 1 was like a long setup. It almost like could have been 2 episodes maybe, but they added in a lot of other storyline, I think, to bring everything together. I won't say too much about it, but I think it was an interesting show, and I definitely would watch season 2. What? There's humming.
Go. The TV show, the show on Disney is going to become Obi-Wan. It's like 50 days or something.
Oh, Obi-Wan is coming.
Yeah, Obi-Wan is coming.
I thought you said humming.
Nope, it's not what I said.
Why is John humming?
Nope. No.
Obi-Wan is coming. Yes.
The line that led to the creation of this whole movie is, am I remembering it? It's in the end of episode 4, right? When they're
in the opening scroll. In the opening scroll,
right?
And I don't have my phone, but in the opening scroll, it talks about great lengths that
in episode 4.
Yeah,
The New Hope.
Yeah, we've had people. Something like people have gone through great lengths to obtain the plans. I can't remember exactly, but in the opening scroll of episode 4.
So it's that, and then it's also the line that female rebel general gives right before, like their pep talk, right?
It's been long enough with episode 4 that I can't remember exactly, but before they go into the trench run, right, when they're all together, I think she does mention something.
She pauses
there.
Like she does a dramatic pause at great sacrifice.
Yeah. But it definitely, I think the cool thing is how really from one line, right, they pull this storyline. And that's cool. The really neat thing about the Star Wars universe is there's so much. I do have an interesting thought though. There, I like Star Trek and Star Wars, and so sometimes my mind goes to Star Trek when I'm watching Star Wars. But when they were on,
that
Jeddah,
sounds like you're kissing your sister, dude. No,
when they were on, well, let's not get into that right now. But on on Jeddah, when right before the Death Star right as the Death Star destroys Jeddah, you have this huge wave of like planet coming, and they're racing to the ship, right? They're racing to their U-wing to fly out of there, and K2SO, right, flying the U-wing in, and it's obvious. It's like there's no way they're gonna get out of there. And in that moment, my mind always goes to, if they only had teleportation technology like they do in Star Trek. Wouldn't work,
dude. The Earth force field.
Them up.
The Earth force field would prevent them from being able to be beamed in or out, I think.
Beam me up.
But I like where you're going with that, though. And surely the Star Wars universe should have teleportation technology.
Yes.
Is there limits? Is there limits to how far you can teleport someone?
I don't know. Star Trek? I have friends that I'm sure would know the answer to
that.
But I do not.
Sounds like no, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so this movie, yes, very nostalgic to me. I think my favorite. So let me ask you, can you name your favorite characters in this movie or character in this movie?
Easily. I can easily
Okay, who
name my
is
favorite character.
So then do you have, it's one. Is that fair? Okay, who's your favorite character?
K2SO, man.
K2SO.
By far, hands
he's
freaking
like
down. I wish he had more screen time. I desperately wish he had more screen time, but probably the amount of screen time he has. But he is so freaking funny and so well placed. And then he, like, I'm gonna get teary talking about it. And then he just totally gives himself up. Like, it's just so awesome. Like, it's just awesome.
Pays the sacrifice.
I just like just the way he's like delivering the odds and like he can't help himself and and what's his bucket who's the spy bad A guy, what's his name?
Cassian.
Cassian is always like, shut up, I don't want to know, shut up. Tell me. Like,
I love
a little bit of that, but K2SO is just, I love how his body hangs. I love his eyes, I love his quips. I mean,
his quips are perfectly timed, aren't they? Like, they did a great job.
They did such a great job.
I love when he catches the grenade when they're on Jeddah, like, right? And he's like, I should have stayed or whatever. He's like, I shouldn't have.
I shouldn't have been here. That's right. I should have stayed back in the ship. Like just like everything about it. Or just, and like the fact that he couldn't come up with like a better fake when like the Imperial forces are like, who are you? And like, where are you taking them? And he's all like, I'm taking them. And they're like, where are you taking them? And he's like, I don't know what he says. Like, to the ship,
prison. I'm going to the prison.
Like,
the prison.
The fact that he like couldn't come up with a better, like, I love that. Like, it's just great, man. It's just, he's absolutely wonderful. He serves his comic relief role perfectly. And
I feel like they did a great job. He is definitely,
he's the star.
You know, I love droids in the Star Wars universe, and I feel like with him, they really did a good job. You know, I feel like not all droids are created equal. I feel like in the Star Wars movies, but he is magnificent. And I love that for me, K2SO, he has like, his personality has some hints for me of like a C3PO, but he's like more sarcastic,
edgy, more edgy.
Where C3PO is a little more whiny, right?
Well, he's just totally naive, right? He's just totally clueless. And K2SO is not.
And so I love that it has a little bit of that flair. Like, I get a sense of like a C3PO, like on steroids, where it's like, really,
he's just a jerk. He's like he's a C3PO jerk.
But I love how Andor or Cassian Andor introduces him in the beginning. He's like something like, oh, he's very direct, or what does he say? He says something like that to
I don't know what the introduction line is. It's something
rescuer,
like that,
or even when that's probably one of the best.
I don't get to have a gun.
It's so funny because it's like this passive aggressive poke where he's like, she gets to have a gun, and then Cassian's like, what? Wait, what? So he's like tattling on her. But he's
like a 7-year-old, it's like a brother. That's really what he is. He's kind of like an annoying brother, like the annoying younger brother.
Rescued Jin in the very beginning, and he like straight arm checks her or whatever as she's trying to flee from the Jeller truck or whatever that is. And he's like, you're welcome, you're being rescued.
You're welcome.
I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's something to that effect. So yes, K2SO. Okay, so K2SO is definitely up there for me. I really like the monks, the guardian of the wills, the Kyber temple monks. And so I was thinking about this, and I was like, man, could I pick K2SO or the monks? Like, I feel like those three are my favorite characters in the movie. But I really like the monks just because of the lore that they bring right there. They guard the Temple of the Wills. They guard the Kyber Temple. And I find it so interesting. I wish they would do a movie on them, because
you're talking about the folks that all get blown up on the first demonstration of the Death Star. that when the city gets blown up? You're talking about the ones that imprison them all or capture them all?
So the monks would be the blind monk and then the monk with the big gun. I can't remember their name.
I've got him here. I brought up things. So Wing Zhang, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's the actor as Baze Malbus.
Yeah, so that's the big gun one, which
I don't even know how to say his name. I don't even know how his name. Chirrut.
Yeah, Chirrut is the blind one, right?
Yeah, he's very cool.
I love, there's even a line in there where Chirrut is talking about the big gun guy. And he's like, he says something to the effect of, he was the most devoted follower. And so I feel like there's such a huge,
there's
awesome
a great story there. There's a story there.
I'm like, I want them to do a Star Wars stories on.
Cool.
So these two
stuff
guys,
like that,
do you know much about this?
Stuff like that gives it so much depth, right? That's so cool. That's when you know you've got a great movie, is because there is that kind of stuff hanging around, you know.
So this mantra that they
I have to be honest. It bugs me a little bit of how it's used in the movie. I mean, I get it, but I don't know. There's something about it. I don't know what to say. It bugged me. It bugged me that he would chant it. And I get the mantra, and I want to hear what you have to say about it, because it'll probably help me not be irritated by it. But the fact that they just chant, I wish they would have come up with a little bit more of an interesting way without him just chanting it when he's like walking around doing stuff. But
so that's supposed to be like the mantra of the Guardian. So do you know much about the monks?
No, not at all.
They're guardians of what you call the Temple of the Wills, or the Kyber Temple, which is on Jeddah, which was the biggest, or supposed to be the biggest temple. And so all the temples have guardians, and they're the guardians, and the Guardians of the Wills, their mantra is that the force, yes,
and the force is me.
Yes. And so the interesting thing, I don't know a ton about them, so I don't know.
I was like surprised.
I don't think they're force users they're like force sensitive.
Yeah,
right?
That's what it seemed. Well, clearly Chirrut is. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he's force sensitive, but he can't really use the force necessarily. He's aware of the force.
Deeply aware.
That's what I love about that mantra, because you know, George Lucas introduced this idea of the midichlorians, and he says at one point that everyone has midichlorians,
right?
And I love that, because it's this idea that we all have access to the force,
right?
It's just some people may be more in tune to it than others. And that's what I kind of love about that mantra, is it's this monk who doesn't have, you know, the access to the force like Anakin or Luke or Rey,
or the Jedi
have, but
he's still living in line with
exercising his ability to grow in the force. And it's grown to the point to where he can do some crazy stuff even though he's blind, right? And he trusts the force. And so I like that. So the Guardian of the Wills, it's really cool. So the wills are like the wills are, oh man, what are they? They're like different teachings that were written at some point about different philosophies. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know Qui-Gon Jinn was rumored, or maybe he is, I can't remember exactly, but he is a guardian of the will. Like he wrote,
like he came out of that.
Yeah, and he was supposed to be the one. So one of the wills would be this idea that you can live on after death.
Oh, okay.
And so he, I think, is supposed, in the lore, is Qui-Gon Jinn is supposed to be one of the ones who really reinforce that you can become like a force spirit, right? And you do this through, it was something really cool, I remember, and I can't quite remember what it is, but you can do this through like just, is it being kind, or just having extreme love or acceptance for others. It was something really neat. but the wills are different, like philosophies or different teachings that have been founded and then now protected within the Jedi order, kind of, or in these temples. And so the guardians of the wills, these monks, were ones tasked to protect. And so it's really cool because obviously by this point, we're, in episode 4, Luke Skywalker is 19. And so we're right around 19 in Rogue One. We're right around,
it's like a week before
19 years past episode 3. So it's probably about 19-ish years since Order 66, since the Jedi were taken out, like they were all just killed almost. And so for almost 20 years, these two monks have stood watch over a temple that's in ruins. Like you see a couple of times the one huge statue just on the side, right? I'm guessing that was standing at one point. Maybe it's always been on the side. But for 20 years, he has stood there, and his friend has stood there with him, protecting the wills. And I think that's just such a neat thing.
It is cool.
And so there's devotion. So much there that I feel like they could go into, and maybe one day they will. But I love, so that for me makes the monks, those two characters,
just very cool.
Probably my favorite character. The K2SO is good also, but I think they're my favorite just because I love what they represent and what they bring. The ability of Rogue One to still bring the Force into the movie and not make it necessarily, this is a Skywalker saga movie,
right?
But it's a Star Wars universe movie.
Well, they really paved
the Force.
They really paved the way to really be able to tell other stories and know that the fans would love it, and that there are other stories to tell, which is so cool to think about. I was talking to somebody else about this in regards to Harry Potter, that like it's crazy that a person can sit down and come up with something that's manifested itself into the world of a place people love to escape in their stories. It's really such a cool phenomenon that something like that can come into being, and then it can
like
be, and it's like a place,
too, right?
Yeah,
this
dude,
world
like,
building. It goes beyond my comprehension of how can you create such a huge, dynamic, diverse world.
That's really cool.
It is. And I'm sure there's like building blocks, right? There's probably certain things that every one of these things starts with or has in it, and then it goes from there. But at some point, it doesn't matter how many building blocks you have, there's just a ton of creativity there. Because it's so diverse. But
I was listening to I watched about 10 minutes of a clip with Brandon Sanderson and his wife, and they were talking about how the secret books, did you see it, came about? Oh, it was really cool. They were gifts, actually. Brandon wrote the first one.
He talked about that.
And he gave it to her. Well, he gave it to her. So like he wrote this book or whatever, and he gave it to her, and it was up to her to decide. Like if she wanted to just keep it for her own, like her own private story in the Cosmere, or to kind of share it, And she was like, I couldn't keep it. She's like, I want to be able to talk about it. She's like, if it was just mine, she's like, that's really cool. But she's like, and I guess part of the story too came from her. Like she had an idea and she said something to him. And so he wrote her idea into a story about this other world in the Cosmere or whatever. So.
It's really cool. For those of you who don't know, Brandon Sanderson's a fantasy author, and he has a bunch of different, some of his books are even sci-fi. The Skyward ones are more sci-fi.
They're not in the Cosmere though, right?
Skyward's he has different universes that Cosmere.
I think it's just right. I think it's just Skyward and just the Reckoner series that aren't. Isn't everything else he's written in the Cosmere? I think
it could be. I'm not that versed, but
I think that's right.
But he has a number of books that he's working on all the time for. I think it's Tor is the publisher that he works mostly with, and he gives a story about during the last 2 years with COVID, he spends I think like 30 or 40% of his time traveling, and he hasn't been able to travel the last 2 years. So he said, I took that 30 or 40% of my time and wrote 4 additional books. Actually, I think it was 5 additional books, but 4 of them he's self-publishing, and it's over 30 million. I haven't looked in the last couple of days, but
I bet his wife's going to be happy with that choice. Happy with that choice.
I always wonder how much of it actually comes.
Well, the self-publishing's got it, unless he's got some owe to Tor or something. I'm sure if it's self-published.
Yeah, no, he doesn't owe anything to Tor, but I wonder, after Kickstarter fees, after the money processing fees, and then you have to pay for all these premium hard copy books, all the like even the mystery boxes 8 months of the year. You think how, I'm sure 30 million probably dwindles pretty quickly. And then he has all his overhead for warehouse and shipping.
He's got all that.
Shipping anyway. Fees he's charging for. And then he has to pay his employees, all that.
He's got all those. He's got all those anyway.
I'm guessing he's going to have to get more warehouse storage.
Yeah, probably.
So,
but back to Rogue One. Back to Rogue One. So, okay, one of the things that I really loved about watching it this time is how much the opening scene is so good. Like just like when it pops up and the spaceship flies in and it comes down along the beach.
Yeah, it's really
visually
beautiful.
Gorgeous. It's visually gorgeous.
We should back up just a little bit though, because you have the infamous no scroll text.
Mm-hmm.
There's no text in this movie. I remember Heather and I went to Century in Vegas when this opened that night, and it was really fun. They actually gave posters, so I have a really cool poster I have framed somewhere in this room. But I remember sitting there and thinking, "What the heck? This is weird. Like, where's my text?
Where's my big instrumental symphony?
What's going on?" But it works. It's still awesome. But I think that is the first Star Wars movie, right? I think Solo also doesn't have it. I think that's the first Star Wars movie. But yes, so we go into this beautiful scene. Even gorgeous. The space scene right before is really cool.
So pretty, yeah.
And then you go to this like desolate planet to find Jin and Galen Erso.
I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused by joining up in the story later. So she escapes and Dad gets taken into the Empire to build this horrible weapon.
Yeah.
And his wife clearly was an advocate to get him out. So she gets eliminated, but I'm curious why it is that Jin has a chip on her shoulder. I mean, obviously she's been orphaned, and she was with the guy.
A chip on her shoulder towards who? Like towards everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I guess towards everyone. I mean, I guess she has this flippant attitude of like, why bother to resist? You can't do anything. They're going to win. And I guess that's because her life got ruined because her dad got sequestered back into the service of the Empire.
Also, she was raised by Saw Gerrera, who is an extreme fanatical. Like he's always in the Clone Wars cartoon. He's in the book. He's always portrayed as this like extreme fanatical, like
against the Empire.
Strap a bomb to your chest, go into a crowded market and just explode. Radical.
So she was also escaping from him.
Just leaves her, right? He just leaves her. He abandons her in the middle of this battle or whatever they're doing, this mission. He just abandons her, just leaves her, and basically she has to survive on her. Like she has to find a way to survive the rest of this mission. And then his reason, you have this short scene where they're kind of arguing about it.
Yeah, and then
his reason is, well, you became a jeopardy to the mission. That's why he abandoned her. Well, he basically says people were starting to question or something like who you are and your connections,
where your loyalties were.
And I don't think that so much, but just really question her because her father is Galen Erso, right? He's celebrated, supposedly the top scientist for the Empire, which in a fanatical would be extreme no. And so Saw's reason for abandoning her in this really dangerous situation where she easily could have died, is the impression I get, is
the betrayal.
well, you just were too much of a risk to my purpose or my plan. And that's how fanatical he is. It's like this little girl that he's raised for most her life, she's just out just like that. And not even just like, well, let's leave you somewhere safe. We're going to just abandon you alone on a planet in the middle of a mission.
Yeah, well, and it's
I think that's why she has a chip on her shoulder.
Yeah, it's so much it's problematic logic too, because that's one of my problems with like the Empire too. It's like the Empire will just kill the whole planet, you know, to save, you know, the plans of the Death Star getting out. And I'm just like, even from just a diabolical capitalistic mindset, like that's a waste of a lot of resources. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's just always problematic to me that people can buy into evil, which they do, when it'll so quickly cut your throat because of its purposes or its lack of care, you know. And I wonder if it's really that real in the underbelly of organized crime, if there isn't some like rule of loyalty, you know, that is kind of maybe not truly followed but humored. Because just the idea, like if I'm one of the guys on that planet, like how would I even allow myself to be a pawn or a drone when I know, well, they could just decide to blow up the city, they don't care about me.
I guess the question I would have for you is what are your options?
Yeah, and maybe that's the case with a lot of them. You know, they're just like from downtrodden places in the universe, and it's like it's a job, it's a meal.
Even Krennic, right? Krennic he's very high up, and he's boisterous. He's like, hey, I want my due, right? I want to be recognized. And what does Vader do?
Yeah, don't make sure you don't choke on your
kill him, right? He force
like don't choke on your ambitions. It's such a great line.
I think like what options do they have? I think in real life, you know, it's amazing. I think even like sex trafficking, right? It's really what it is people using people completely.
Desperation,
just no care for humanity, just complete and utter using something as a resource and then just discarding it.
And I guess if you're
or even animals the same too, right?
Yeah, I guess if you're stuck in the middle of that just seems like the reality of what the world or the universe is like, and how can you confront it or get out of it if that's just the world that you swim and live in, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think also in Star Wars, you know, it's a universe, right? It's I think beyond our comprehension. So for them to destroy Jeddah, which has like not that big of a city, like I don't know that it even produces anything that the Empire cares about. For them to destroy that, they did pull all their people off first before they destroyed it, but then to go to what's the name of where it starts with an S, where Scarif, to go to Scarif and destroy that is more interesting, right? Because they still had all their people on it.
Well, and it's their backup. It's like their hard drive. It's like how it's portrayed.
But it's interesting because it's Tarkin that does Scarif, right? Tarkin destroys Scarif, and Tarkin is this great statistician. He's this great fighter. There's a couple really good Tarkin books that came out. I've read some good stuff in the Legends, so prior to Disney buying it, but even afterwards. And it's really interesting because he is this great statistician, great general or whatever military person portrayed in this universe. And his decision is we'll just wipe out this planet or Scarif where all of our information is stored. And so, yeah, it's interesting how or why he might make that decision. And I think in his viewpoint, the Death Star is more valuable than all those lives in the planet. And I think that's the question we have to ask is why? Why is the Death Star more valuable? And I don't know exactly why. I can guess some guesses, but it's valuable enough that they rebuild it. Right. So it's a, it's definitely a planet killer, but I think they think it's the answer to controlling everyone. And control wins over all costs, right? Power wins over all costs. I guess that's kind of where it's coming from, but it is interesting to think about, isn't it? Like the decisions people can make for things that don't seem to, like, I wouldn't care.
Well, the thing that weighs on me is just being a cog in that wheel. I mean, I can understand the big players making some of those decisions. Like, that's plausible.
Well, think about Galen.
But all of the cogs,
Galen's a cog in the wheel, right? He's stuck doing something. Now he tries to do something, right? He tries to put in, he doesn't try. He does put in, but look at what happens. Yeah. All of his scientists are murdered in front of him.
Yeah, that's the part right there. It's like, I think that's the part that gave me such pause, is it's like, you can only coercively get so much juice out of the lemon, when it's like, but I guess, if you've got
there's
kids,
more lemons.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you've got kids and you're like, well, I don't want them to be tortured, or I don't know. It just seems like, well, and I guess that's why I'm a good person and pursue good, because, an evil structure upholding itself in these ways seems like a dumb way to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because, overall it's not going to last and it doesn't feel good and, it's wrong and, but it's just,
that's what we see portrayed, right? And movies is that there tends to always be evil that rises, but it doesn't,
it can't sustain itself over time.
It doesn't survive.
I mean, that's just it. It can't sustain itself over time. I mean, that's why, Palpatine, has got to play this game of keeping Darth Vader just powerful enough, right?
Yeah.
Because
the master apprentice.
Yeah, because it's like once you empower the apprentice too much, then you're no longer at the top of the food chain. And see you later. See you later. So it's limiting in the power of the structure, because like listening to Mr. Beast on a podcast the other day, Mr. Beast said that he worked for 10 months with 4 other guys for 10 to 12 hours a day. Every single day for 10 months, he and 4 other guys got on a Skype call and made YouTube videos and hacked and tried to figure out what worked, what didn't work, how the algorithm responds. And they did that for 10 months.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's how he says, I could have never figured out how to do videos and do what I do, which I love to do, had I not had the interaction and the collaboration of those 4 other guys for that amount of time. He's like, I don't have that kind of talent on my own. And, all Mr. Beast does, like he said, the only thing I do is make videos. I do nothing else with my time. This is all I do every day, every minute of every day since I was 14 or 13 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm just using that as an example of, to get to the greatest capability, you need collaboration. You need more than what you can just do. And so, that evil structure, if you're not going to ever collaborate, you just want to hold all the cards, then the full potential can't ever be realized. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that, part of the issue with with like a Palpatine is they feel like they don't need to learn anything else. They have that full potential already. And that's, and so maybe, that pride and lack of humility is what ultimately, right, leads to
their downfall and destruction.
World, this own worldview that I am God, essentially, right?
I'm the answer.
I don't need any other people. And if you think of it in that
Such
view,
a lonely, horrible place, man.
I would think so, but to do some of the things that they do, I mean, you'd have to be in torture or find a way to ignore it. But still ignoring it's not happiness. It's not, there can't be comfort in that. Or
Got to be just a miserable, horrible, tortured place.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you're just projecting torture. You're just projecting the torture, right? And then you're just, you're just putting it someplace else.
Yeah.
And maybe that, I don't know, I guess that just gives you a sense of like, nobody can do it to me. I just do it to everybody else or whatever. I don't know.
It's
a dark place, man.
That's what's so interesting about the opposite of that, right? Is sacrifice and humility. Mm-hmm. And I like how you see, so an interesting thought to me in the movie, or something that jumped out to me in the movie, is in this movie, you see the underbelly of the rebellion, right?
Yeah, that was something I wanted to talk about too. Yeah, you do. You see the inconsistencies.
Yeah,
right?
And you see some of these things like Cassian in the beginning, just totally killing this guy just because he's like
protecting himself.
I don't want him to get caught. I don't want him to say something. I'm guessing he doesn't say anything.
That's kind of what he says. Yeah, it's kind of what he says.
And it's interesting because you see like some evils, right? It's not really, you don't see the Jedi way or the Force way, but also the Jedi's been gone and or non-existent for a period of time.
Those ideals have been kind of rested in a way.
But to overcome and to defeat the evil, you see a shift with all of these like assassins, basically, right? They're like the underbelly of the rebellion.
That's the whole group. Yeah.
Shift to pure sacrifice.
Right. Well, they believe in it so much. It's like we've done all of these terrible things and we told ourselves that we did these terrible things for a greater good. But then we're going to let this most evil thing become manifest. So they're like, we know that this is a sacrificial mission. So in yes, their minds, we'll do it.
Part of it is I don't want to become what I'm fighting.
Right.
And that's what I hear them say is we've done bad things.
Right.
We want to do something good now. Right.
Right. Well, or it doesn't, because their internal justification system is it was for this greater good. And so if we rest that, then we aren't any better. So
what if you don't ever come to that realization? Then maybe sometimes that's what becomes evil, is this thought in your head that you're doing something for the greater good that then turns you into something that can't see the greater good anymore. Right. Yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting.
It is.
And it's interesting to me. So there's supposed to be sometime this year, another Disney Plus show on Cassian Andor. And that's really interesting to me because are we going to get like a dark, dirty like Disney Plus show? Because isn't he supposed to be like this assassin, like undercover agent dude that just kills people just to
they'll probably whitewash it, but that'll be interesting.
I just found that interesting. They're doing a show on Cassian when out of Rogue One, I feel like there's better characters they could have chosen to do a show on. Not that I don't dislike Cassian. But I don't know. I in the beginning, I'm like, every time I watch it, I'm like, Cassian, I don't know. I mean, I get it. And then he turns, and he kind of starts not deceiving, not lying, not just following orders.
Because he's grappling with like the loss of his identity and then connecting himself again, like finding a reason or remembering other than just revenge. I mean, that line that he confronts her with, like where she's kind of like
the one where she's like, you can't talk your way out of this or whatever.
And he's all like, I've been doing this since I was 5 or whatever. Like that is a powerful scene. Like, which is really
funny. He says it to her.
Yeah.
Because she's been doing it also.
Right.
Like he doesn't recognize that.
Well, but
she's been doing it.
Well, she's kind of taking this laissez-faire, like I don't care or it doesn't matter or whatever. Right at that point in the story, I don't think she's been converted, to the cause, right? And so you know, she's worried
she's
about her
opposed to the
dad.
cause because she's been with Saw Gerrera and sees what the cause is, which is a nightmare, because Saw Gerrera is so fanatical. And I don't think she's laissez-faire so much as she's a little traumatized by it and doesn't trust it quite. And then he goes and he's lying and deceiving, and she's like, dude, Saw, you're Saw.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna deal with this.
Right. But he's like, there's this greater picture. I have a commitment. I have orders. But he's kind of lying to himself too, a little bit there. Right. Which is where his development is.
Which is where he changes. Yeah. He has some. So Cassian for me is like the Han, right? They're trying to get like a Han character where it's like, okay, he's kind of the scoundrel and he becomes a good guy, but he's just not. It's not the same, or it's like in Willow, right? And you have Val Kilmer playing this scoundrel who becomes a good guy. But Cassian, for me, for some reason, just doesn't do it the same way. Like, it's nice. I like how it ends and how I see his change, but for me, it's just not the same. And that's the one area where I'm like, oh, okay, now they're doing a show on him. I'm sure it will be good, because I feel like the Star Wars Disney,
they're going to use the same. They'll probably use the same guy too, eh?
Yeah, it's the same actor. I think he's even producing it. Like, he's heavily involved in it.
No, I liked his arc. I like where he ended up, and I liked the relationship with Jen. I thought it was cool. I liked it. It's interesting, which makes me like it takes my brain to what's the general that's being force choked on his ambitions by Darth Vader? What's that guy's name? I love that he gets to see the glory of his weapon destroy him.
Yeah, that's pretty poetic.
It's really poetic, and I mean, a little obvious, but it was really kind of fantastic. You know what I mean? Which I think is really true. I think that really is the nature of things, that when you try to dig a pit for your neighbor, you fall in it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's really true. And I mean, over the top obvious, but still kind of fantastic. How it blows him like right off the top of the tower. You know what I mean? I thought was really kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it was cool too. And I thought I just had is, I wonder if the Cassian Andor show is going to be about the group of guys that all volunteered. So I wonder if it's not just Cassian, but I wonder if they'll maybe have it be about this group, this like
Underbelly's Assassin's group,
which could actually be kind of cool if they did a story on
where they come from, how they ended up there, what their role was.
So made it more than just about Cassian, but I don't know if they will. Yeah, but that could be cool too.
Interesting enterprise.
Yes.
So what other themes in the movie were profound to you, or what else got your Star Wars scratch itched from Rogue One?
So yeah, I like Rogue One. I enjoy it. I really like the monks in it, and this whole
that whole backstory.
Yeah, the whole backstory to it. I love K2SO. I mean, the end scene, of course, brings up a ton of nostalgia. You have, Darth Vader.
So ferocious. It makes him so much more evil and fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's really dark. I mean, it's just really dark. They do a great job of making him more evil in this. I mean, that whole interaction with the general that I was just talking about, where he goes and he's like, but I get to control the Death Star or whatever, where he's trying to kind of insert himself or retain like the glory of what he has created and given the Empire. And how he's portrayed, Darth Vader's portrayed through all that is really cool.
I think it's always been interesting to me. Darth Vader has these interactions. So he has this interaction early on with Leia, right, where he almost captures her, and then in episode 4 he does capture her. And it's always been interesting to me that, and maybe he just hides it and doesn't really voice it, but he doesn't sense anything, right?
Yeah, that it's his daughter. Like,
yeah,
sense,
and
right?
maybe I just have missed that. And if I have, someone can let us know. But it's interesting to me that he doesn't catch on quicker.
It's kind of nonsense in one respect. It's a little bit of a hole, right?
Well,
Because
and
there's
I
no
don't know if
way
they're trying to say like he's gone so deep,
dark that
and
he's
Darth
detached
Sidious
from
is
that.
really good at manipulating him, right? And really
True.
deceiving him. So I don't know if they're trying to play that where it's like Darth Sidious ability to manipulate and deceive Darth Vader has blinded him to this, or maybe he just senses, oh, maybe there's something with this person because Leia is a powerful person in the rebellion, right?
Absolutely, right. Tapped into
She's
the Force, man.
son of, or daughter of a senator, right? I think he's a senator, um and so maybe he's just blind to that.
I could
He
buy that.
definitely picks up with it on Luke, but Luke supposedly is more force sensitive, although we learn later that Leia is a force user also. So maybe she just wasn't quite as force userish. I'm not sure. I've not, it's been
I
long
could
enough
buy
since I've read
into
books.
just the blindness of the manipulation, right? Because
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that was really powerful to me and diabolical and profound, though you can critique the movies in number 3 and his evolution to darkness, I think, was well done. The rage, just the lack of logical flow, you know,
Yeah. And
and
for
how
me,
misguided and how he ends up just at the knees of Palpatine, and so because you kind of have to give yourself over to that and
well, and
kind of put your head
it's like an
in the sand.
extreme desire to feel loved and to connect and to protect that
So
Darth Sidious manipulates, right?
right. So if
And
he's
takes advantage of.
so retracted from that, then it makes sense that he could be numb to tap into that this is my daughter.
Yeah, that's
Right?
a great point, because he
You're right.
does go like when
It's so
Padme
dark.
dies,
Yeah.
he
So
goes
just
like
yeah,
crazy. He
yeah,
like
he
a
goes
light
totally insane.
a switch turns.
Yeah.
I
And
will
then you've
say,
been chopped into bits by your best friend. And then,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and you killed children. And so, yeah, like you don't want to feel anything and you're half robot or whatever, yeah, you don't want to feel anything. So you're not going to be sensitive to, oh, wait, maybe my kids did survive
Well,
or
he
a
doesn't
kid
even know it's
survived.
kids, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
which is interesting too,
Right.
which maybe hides Leia even more because he feels it so much with Luke and doesn't even think or
There's
conceptualize, oh,
another
there's another one.
sister. Sister.
The I will say this. So as far as Rogue One, um I really like it. I have liked all the Star Wars stuff, but I'm one of
Me
those
too.
crazy fans that just like Star Wars, so they could put
Yeah.
out whatever they want and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go see it 20 times in the theater and talk about it
Yeah.
for in every conversation I have. But I really enjoyed Rogue One. I felt like it was a fun one. I would love for them to do more Star Wars stories.
Well,
I love
and
the
I loved,
shows. It kind of
I,
fills that niche a little bit, but I'd love more
well,
movies.
and I love that it, I mean, it's allowed to be the movie it is because there is this ending that works out. But I love that it it ends in a really tragic, horrible place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the plans get through and you see it connect to Leia, so you know how the story plays out. But in and of itself, it's a story of great sacrifice, and that's a really profound. It's a really profound story. It's a story that needs to be told. It's a story that's real. I mean, people give of themselves all the time in our lives and in their lives for good causes, for other people. And they're regular people or people that have done horrible things, and that's one of the things that's so important to understand in having good mental health or getting through difficult situations is, there is redemption, you know what I mean? Or yeah, you're going to do bad things, but or just because you've done bad things doesn't mean you can't do good things or that there's not a net good, even though there's been bad, you know what I mean? And so I know there's something really important about that
Well,
in
I think
being able to sit with
oftentimes,
yourself, and be okay with who you are when you've got a rough history,
well, I think our minds and our really, I think this fight or flight, the amygdala really likes to get stuck in the past, right? Where it's like our brain is trying to protect us
Yeah, it's that
from
learned.
from hurting ourselves in the future. So we get stuck in the past and we get stuck in this mistake we feel like we've made. And
Or
so
others.
much so that we don't realize that if we could just let go of that mistake and forgive ourselves, and then we
Just
could
move
move
forward.
forward and we could
Just do
learn and
great
grow.
things. Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, there's this notion for each of us that how often do I get stuck in something fearing that I need to be forgiven for doing it, or I need to be I need to really punish myself from doing this, for doing this thing, and maybe not realize that it's not about forgiveness in this moment. It's not about punishment. It's about, hey, this was a great opportunity to learn something and to take that knowledge and just move on, like
That's
move
a hard
forward.
thing, dude. It's
Well,
such an
and
interesting
culture,
thing.
I think culture in our world a lot of times doesn't reinforce that, right? We kind of go to the shame model oftentimes in culture in the world, where that's bad, and we focus so much on fear that we're bad,
Well,
that we fail to recognize all the good
yeah, well,
within us, and we get
it
stuck in that
plays
fear.
into the theme of this movie because, a huge dynamic in the sacrifice and redemption is the notion of trust. Which story can you trust?
Yeah.
Is the guy that created the plans of the Death Star really trying to foil the whole thing? Like, that's the word on the street. Like, come on. And so there's so much of that idea of trust. And so one of the things of, if someone's been a bad actor in your life, the function of shame is to protect yourself
Yep.
from their behavior and their assumed predictable pattern that they're going to do that again, right? So, some of the function of shame in a society is to get that person that is going to do ill or could do ill
Well,
again, right?
and I
But
think,
it doesn't factor in this notion of change and
yeah,
evolution and learning and growth.
well, I think that we have to understand that maybe more than that being real is it's our amygdala working, right? It's our
Yeah.
amygdala creating realness. I say this a lot of times with clients. It's the difference of perceived fear and real fear. If I'm on a hike walking in the forest, I can be so scared that a wild beast is going to come down on the path and attack me that I just turn around and go back. That fear is fear of a perception, fear of something happening, versus there's actually a wild beast right in front of me that is
Right.
attacking me.
Right.
And I think that amygdala is so powerful
Yeah.
that for us, we see this in culture where it's like this protection factor, but I think it's not real.
Right.
We're
Well, and
so
that's
fearful
the
about things
functionality.
that
I
it
mean,
prevents us from moving forward.
I guess
And I'm not
God,
globalizing that. I mean, there are
no,
real dangers in life,
absolutely.
but I think 99% of the time we're operating on perceived fear, and
Right.
that gets us stuck.
Absolutely. Well, but I mean, right, the majesty of the brain is to have a functionality like
Yeah.
that, which is probably worked out for our net benefit, in the long run, right?
Well,
That we,
definitely in the beginning,
yeah,
right?
yeah, evolutionarily
Definitely.
speaking, right?
Yeah, definitely in the beginning.
And so it's
Um,
really cool that in the mortal evolutionary process that we have to decisively become aware of this reaction and override it out of frontal lobe capability potential to realize that there can be redemption, that there can be change, and that
and what great
to
growth can come from that,
yeah, well, and
right?
what
It's really a
majesty.
cool thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
like
a cool thing to
it
think
is a cool
about.
thing.
But I think oftentimes we don't conceptualize what's going on and why it's going on, and we just get stuck in the, well, I did a bad thing, therefore I'm bad,
Well, and
therefore I'm not
it
moving
really comes
forward.
back to this thing that I'm starting to double down on all the time now, with clients and in general when I'm speaking or talking to other, especially like the importance of really cultivating resilience.
Yeah.
That we have to have a tolerance of discomfort and pain, that we can't assume that every time we're going to get hurt by something that it's going to kill me or be the end all be all worst terrible horrible thing ever, which it's a horrible thing. I mean, especially when you look at traumas that people have been through, they are horrible and nobody should have to go through it and nobody should have to go through it again. But you did survive, and something great can come out of that if you cultivate resilience and learn the right lessons versus just running away from everything that's hard, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
gain knowledge, and really the most important thing to gain from a traumatic experience and to share is the knowledge that you gained, the opportunity to educate others and warn, hey, don't betray, don't be a betrayer, learn a higher way, because you're going to be in pain and you're going to hurt other people. Look, I went through it. I was a victim. This is what I went through. Don't become a person that does that to other people. I mean, that's the opportunity, is to kind of transmute or to share, or, to pass that knowledge down, which really is what, separates us from all the other animals in the kingdom, is that we can pass down information in a really, high level.
Yeah. And I think such a key component of that is missed is with a resilience, is the awareness that I have done something and I have learned and I have grown, because that shame obliterates the awareness. And so being aware of, hey, I was able to do this and I made it through, and then remember that gets just thrown out the window when the shame creeps in. So I think understanding and knowledge definitely plays into awareness, and then understanding and knowledge of how our mind works and why we might be thinking a certain way, and then that awareness of, hey, I did this and I made it through. It wasn't easy. It wasn't tough, but I did it. Like, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
And so there's this different component, different pieces, of building resilience that I think are really important, that I think we dismiss so quickly because that shame just really, it automatically turns our amygdala on, and then boom, we're right in the middle of, that we're not good, or we're
it brings us back to our first episode of emotional regulation, and how essential it is, so that you're making decisions from a place of wisdom, truth, goodness,
which is hard for everyone on this earth to do.
Amen.
Because when you're in that moment, it's real.
It's protect, it's run, it's don't get hurt, you know. I've got to cut us off, my brother. I'm so sorry. My time is short.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
So much good stuff to keep talking about, but we're going to be coming back to Star Wars. Don't you worry.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was, man. You guys have a great afternoon.
Join us again.
Please do.